Konnichiwa, minasan. Welcome back for another round of Warhammer research. Returning to Majorkill. It was a fun watch. A lot was compacted in 10 minutes for the warp, but for the warp explained. But this time it is the WAAAGH explained. The title is the WAAAGH explained by an Australian Warhammer 40k lore. Links down in the description below. Now. I had to do a little catching up with the comments because they provided some nice, interesting information. So from every 40k faction is bad research. I might have your name, might mispronounce your name, so I apologize in advance. Ordem do Graveto said in the research, to be fair, what most people forget is that Tyranids have hive mind. It's conscious, its plans, and its schemes. It's not just animal instinct. Duly noted, the Tyranids, while instinctually bad, do have a hive mind, and they work off of each other with their schemes and everything, which is pretty scary because that means that they have psychic power. I wonder how many psychics listen to that. Oh man, that's probably scary. That's very scary. Then, from the insanity of each orc clan research, once again, Ordem do Gravito, apologize if I messed up your name, said, the cult of speed is not exclusive to the evil sons, and all orcs are looters. Some just rush to the desert before they finish the main meal, that is the crumping. I'm going to have to find out what that is, the crumping. I hope there's a video on that. And also from Dominique 36127, orcs believe in two gods, Gork and Mork, which was briefly mentioned in another research video regarding the orc clans. They believe that Gork is brutal but cunning, while Mork is cunning but brutal. This is explained as such. If you meet Gork, he will hit you with his club. If you meet Mork, he will also beat you with his club, but from behind. So thank you viewers, for that information, and look forward to more information from the comments to cover. So call to action: comment, like, subscribe, follow, and hit the notification bell. And now let's begin the research.
G'day guys and gal. While it might not be October yet, the Green Boys have admittedly not gotten as much love as they deserve on this channel.
Boo, give them love.
They're having the time of their lives, but all we want to talk about is which Primarch's cock is the biggest. On top of them deserving some love, I've also seen a shitload of people talk absolute nonsense about what the WAAAGH can and cannot do. So while it is funny to be like, an orc thinks he's a tank, so that he's a tank, vroom vroom, the reality is not that quirky, and the power isn't as retardedly overpowered as that. Like, some people think that the Emperor only lives because the orcs believe that he does. Now, I'm not discrediting the girth of the orcs. They do have the most powerful gods after all, but it's my job as a lore teller to set the facts straight. In opposition to that, it's also my job as a shit poster to spread rumors that orcs can do all this fun shit, so I really have to exercise self-control in this video.
No, give it to me. Give it to me.
Today we'll talk about the orcs' WAAAGH, how it was created, what it's capable of, and then some dumb shit moments in the lore which have spawned a legion of orc memes and misinterpretations of the green voodoo. Let's get into it. So where did the WAAAGH come from? After all, a bunch of angry fungal shreks that can tap into a mystical psychic force doesn't really sound like natural selection. Well, that's because it isn't. Orcs were one of the races created by the Old Ones back in the day. Why the fuck would the Old Ones, wise beings who value life, create the orcs? Well, desperate times, desperate measures. See, the salty Necron tier were extra salty because the Old Ones wouldn't show them how to make sunscreen to deal with their hectic melanomas. So the Necron tier sold their souls to the Catan and were reborn as the Necrons. Whilst the Necron tier were noobs and easy to clap, the Necrons were OP as shit and gave the Old Ones a lot of issues. Originally it was just the Eldar taking on the Necrons, as they were the Old Ones' #1 race. However, a bunch of pansy-ass space elves that breed slower than a woman going through menopause were unsurprisingly not good enough to deal with a bunch of soulless killer robots. Hence the Old Ones created a devastating experimental biological weapon, the orcs, and an army with a not fully yet understood psychic power, the WAAAGH. The orcs, or crooks as they were initially called when they were OP as shit, were very effective at fighting the Necrons. However, due to their crude and experimental nature, they would later become a gigantic pain in everyone's ass once the war in heaven was over. Where does the WAAAGH come into this? Well, the WAAAGH is the fuel that feeds the orcs' morale. The Crooks were so big and powerful because their WAAAGH was so fucking extravagant. Not only were they recently spawned by the old ones, hence their WAAAGH was fresh, but they were fighting legions of zombie robots led by literal gods. The battles were obscene, and there was constant death and war. This overclocked the shit out of their WAAAGH, hence why each Crook was the equivalent of a Primarch. I'm not joking, the war in heaven was a wild time. However,
So they have the Crocs, who were the early orcs, had the power of a Primarch. I'm gonna have to research Primarch. Have power of a Primarch. Do they still have that? I'm gonna have to find out what a Primarch is and research that. So as established, the Elrons did create the orcs as part of their war with the Necrons when they were battling the Necrons. The WAAAGH is some kind of psychic morale boost that acts as fuel for the orcs to just motivate them to go out there and fight. And that has and that comes from the power of the Primarch. I hope I got that right. I'm probably gonna forget all that. This is a whole lot of info, but that's pretty crazy. So the WAAAGH is not so much the name of it's not another word for war. It's actually a collective psychic charge up. Huh. Oh, that's scary. It's almost like the Tyranids, but from a war context, in terms of sharing the mind. I probably got that all wrong just now.
However, once the war in heaven was over and the Necrons and the Catan were no longer around, the WAAAGH began to diminish. The Elder were not honourable opponents and would often just orbitally bomb orc strongholds instead of facing them in melee combat. These culling campaigns were a huge blow to any Crook's ego, and eventually they all shrank and devolved into the orcs we all know and love today. From that example, we can get a pretty good understanding of how the WAAAGH works. It scales the power of the orcs to what they're fighting. Once all the good fights are gone, the orcs will wither and shrink. This is why they just love fighting anyone anywhere. It's literally good for their health. Another would be like imagining it as a type of hive mind, where the deeds of each orc feeds into a WAAAGH, and then it's distributed amongst the rest of the orcs. For example, when the Beast arose, who were a bunch of demi-crooks not long after the Horus Heresy, their sheer girth empowered the WAAAGH to such an extent that orcs that weren't even near the Beast at the time found themselves growing larger and smarter. Put it into perspective, during the Wars of the Beast, the orcs were using diplomats, farming strategies, and even fucking attack moons, just to show examples of what the WAAAGH can really do. Fabius Bile once saw a Croak in Trezin's museum, and he noted that the monster's power armor was even more advanced than his. So that's the general gist of the WAAAGH, and why orcs love fighting. Lots of orcs in lots of battles means bigger and smarter orcs, which means more better battles, and so on. Think of the WAAAGH like momentum. The bigger a WAAAGH, the more momentum it can build. Hence why WAAAGHs are usually destroyed in one huge ass battle rather than a bunch of small skirmishes, and it's also why sabotage and hit and run strategies against orcs can be so effective. Anything to disrupt their momentum disrupts their WAAAGH.
Got it.
To the spicier part of the WAAAGH, the power of belief. At a base level, if an orc believes something to be absolutely true, it will become true. This power has a lot of limits though, and it is hard to hack. Like, you can't just hypnotize an orc and tell it that it has a 12-meter cock and it can fly. And voila, you now have a flying fuck stick. No, that's not how it works.
Well, that's disappointing.
How it does work, however, is by making poorly made machinery operate and other random shit. Like, orc guns and vehicles shouldn't work. They're not built correctly, and they don't have many essential parts like ammo clips and triggers for guns or engines and gears.
These guys are hardcore engineers.
However, an orc is too stupid to realize this, hence the gun-shaped bit of metal they have in their hand is now a fully functioning shooter. There are other funny cases of the WAAAGH coming in clutch. A crew of orcs were stranded in the desert and out of fuel. The orc knob, who was part of the crew, says, "Nah, we can't be out of fuel. I filled us up yesterday." And the rest of the orcs in the crew thought, "Well, the knob said he filled it up, so it must be filled up." Lo and behold, the truck could now start, and it had just enough fuel to get them home.
That is a cool story.
Different parts of the WAAAGH. Orcs believe red makes things go fast, so they paint their cars red. They believe yellow gives them more dakka, so they paint bombs and guns yellow. The colour does seem to have some effect. After all, orcs believe purple makes you stealthy, and I've personally never seen a purple orc. The WAAAGH does have a limit though. You can't just tell an orc that if he fists himself for 6 hours straight, he'll gain the power to bypass Chinese censorship. The WAAAGH is powerful, but not that powerful. Here is where the misconception about the WAAAGH comes from though. The WAAAGH only affects orcs and orc technology. If an orc thinks that a space marine is really powerful, it doesn't make the space marine powerful. It's also why orc technology can only be used by orcs, as the wielder has to tap into the power of the WAAAGH for their useless shit to work. As such, a number of popular...
Wait. So what you're saying... So, it's... Whoa, wait a second. That sound... So... I'm thinking right now of Judge Dredd. I never read the comics, but I saw both movies. And I know that the one rule is that the judge's gun, can only be used by the assigned judge. Anybody else who uses that gun will have their arm blown off. Is that what I'm hearing here? That nobody else can use any of this technology because the technology is tuned to the WAAAGH? And so only the orcs can be able to use it because it's under the WAAAGH influence, similar to the judge's gun, because that's pretty epic. That's actually pretty epic. When you think about it, that's actually pretty tight. It makes a lot of sense, you know, that the orcs are using the WAAAGH to functionally operate machines that should not function the way they're doing. That's a whole other level of psychic that's being implemented on that they're implementing. That makes it even more scarier because that means that nobody can use the tech, or worse, the tech could probably blow them up if they try to use it, as opposed to an orc who would have the power to do it because of the WAAAGH. That's actually pretty good. That's actually a pretty good rule build there. That's a pretty solid rule build. Holy mackerel. It's hardcore. They're a bunch of engineers. They're engineers that make psychic. They engineer psychic weapons and vehicles and armor. Oh man. No wonder why the bigger they are, the greater the tech is, because their intelligence went up. And it's all thanks to the WAAAGH. I like that it's called the WAAAGH.
Are absolute bullshit. Sorry about that. No, the Emperor is not kept alive because the orcs think he's super slick. No, WAAAGH is not powerful because the orcs think he is. He's just a badass. No, the setting of 40k is not in stagnation because the orcs crave non-stop war. And no, I cannot suck my own dick. Trust me, I've already tried. The WAAAGH is also what orc psychers, called weird boys, because you know they're fucking weird, tap into to shoot their green jizz at people.
Right.
I'm not even kidding about that. It's a very undisciplined way of using the warp. But Majorkill, if the orc psychers are untrained and undisciplined, wouldn't they be great conduits for chaos demon possession? Shut the fuck up, Timmy, before I bend you over and aim a weird boy at you. If a demon tries to possess an orc, they will generally have a terrible time. After all, orcs go through the warp without Gellerfields by choice, so definitely not a fun time for anything with a horn or a tentacle. The concept of the WAAAGH is so ingrained into the soul of every orc, woomorc, and chalk that they call their armies WAAAGHs, and they also autistically scream WAAAGH all the time, mostly before charging an Imperial gun line. The WAAAGH is love. The WAAAGH is life. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then Patreon is the place.
Okay, yeah, subscribe, support. Yeah, this video is way shorter than the 10 minutes it presents. This thing went for like 7 minutes. Oh man, that's pretty short. That's pretty short. The WAAAGH is very interesting. I need to find more videos on this too. This is a pretty amazing rule build here. Unlike all the others, I'll need to see what psychic power, how the others apply psychic powers. But the fact that the psychic power here in this context, where they could just insanely enough, how you say, get their power from just fighting, and the more they get out of it, the bigger they get, and the bigger they get, the more intelligent they get. It's a feeding frenzy, basically. That's what the WAAAGH is. It's a feeding frenzy. You know, if they don't feed into it and take on and take on all these battles, they'll shrink and eventually die. I don't know if death will happen, but they'll definitely die if they end up going to battle, tiny as they are. But this is a pretty trippy approach to the whole thing. I mean, just look at this. They can reverse engineer technology. They reverse engineer technology, somehow connect it to the WAAAGH on a psychic level, and nobody but them can use it. Nobody but them can use it. And then they all tap into each other in a collective form and just go all out on their enemies. And they love it. That's the crazy thing. They love it. You know, they're so unburdened. From what I'm understanding so far, they are very unburdened when it comes to any of this. They don't find it a problem or anything. You know, it's like, yeah, and slice. Man, this is the most badass so far. I do want to check out the other races, of course. You know, the humans and the Tyranids and so on. But right now, the orcs are just so awesome. They're so freaking awesome. Like, this is such a clever character build. There we go. This is an amazing character build in every sense of the form. When you look at them and you hear the names and you look at the images, you think, oh, this is some stupid stuff here. But the more you start finding out, the more you realize, no, these guys are hyper intelligent, and it's scary. They're very hyper intelligent. They have self-awareness and they don't care. You know, it's like this. It feels like they have strong. From what I'm seeing in the lore so far, it feels like it comes off like they have self-awareness. They know their limitations, and it still doesn't matter. They have an answer for it because they know they have an answer for it, and that's fighting. As long as they go out there and fight, which they love and they enjoy to do culturally, characteristically, they got nothing to worry about. You know what I'm saying? They got nothing to worry about. That's a very scary mindset when you think about it in the grand scheme of things. When all you know you have to do is just fight and build up a WAAAGH, and you come out gangbusters. You know, this everything is a positive, is a net positive. There we go. Everything's a net positive for them. When everything looked like something is gonna go wrong, they get a net positive. You know, saying they can score a net positive. And what makes it more great is the fact that many of the factions, you know, don't all agree with each other wholeheartedly. From the rich to the poor to the mercenaries, the ones to those who want to do tactics. So it really, you know, keeps them grounded from being one dimensional as a whole group, as a race, as a species. It's fantastic. It's fantastic, quite honestly. I'm sure there's probably some dumb storylines, of course, that just makes everything go. Who knows? Who knows? I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. But nevertheless, this WAAAGH is quite possibly one of the most amazing things I've seen so far, and I can't wait. You know, and this is just the orcs. I still haven't tapped into the other races, and I can't even imagine what amazing stuff they came up with for the others as I continue on with this research. But yeah, man, yeah, I definitely love how the orcs are built. This is a very impressive build here. Very impressive build. Good job, GameWorks. Good job. So yeah. Orc. Hope I'm doing it right. Probably gotta do it with a little bit more for flair. Who knows? But nevertheless, WAAAGH. Head on over to Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com and grab yourself a copy of The Impossible Man, a strange fantasy novel written by me. You'll find links to the book down in the description below, along with links to other merch such as pins, stickers, t-shirts, music. Enjoy the products. Thank you for your patronage. And if you're interested, you could join me on my live multi-stream on Twitch and Kick every Monday through Thursday, 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I look forward to hanging out with you and do more research like this, as well as study nights for Japanese culture and language studies, and plenty of video games and other cool stuff, game designs and so on. Whatever floats your boat, whatever you're interested in. Well, I won't be able to provide everything, so if it's interesting to you, just hang on out with me. So. With that said, until the next round of Warhammer research and the WAAAGH. Thank you all for joining me, and I wish you all a good night, a buenas noches, and oyasumi nasai.